What is up, everybody, and welcome to the CTW Postgame Show. I'm your host, Seamus Zarlingo. Alongside of me tonight, Griffin Aldridge, as the Boston Celtics round out their 2025 Summer League circuit with a boisterous win over the Atlanta Hawks, 101-80. A couple of buckets there at the end to make it a more aesthetic score for both the Celtics and the Hawks, especially for the Celtics, walking away with a 21-point win tonight. Griffin, you know how we do it on here. Initial thoughts for this Summer League game between the Hawks and the Celtics. The last Celtics game until October of 2025.
Well, I gotta say, Seamus, Andrew and I were pretty conflicted last time during the recap because I didn't see any more on the schedule, nor did he. So we were like, oh, it's over, but we had to have the 5 games. But ultimately, it was a little taste of basketball. It's just a taste, it's a little spoonful. That's all you get. You get a little sample. And then it's like, all right, preseason, you get the appetizer. And then, the season comes around, you get the full course meal. So it's great.
What are the playoffs? What are the playoffs and the finals? That's like the
Oh, all right.
I don't even want to say what the finals are. You get the full course meal and then
All right. So
you
I
go
would say
home
that
and you do more.
I would say summer league is the little sample. When you're at what's it called? What's it called? The place that the big boom guys go to. We bring the boom.
The big boom guys?
Costco guys. The Costco guys.
The big boom guys who go to Costco? What are you talking about?
You don't know the
Oh,
Costco.
you're talking about Bring the Boom?
Yeah, we bring the boom.
Those guys are I don't even know their names. I gotta say.
Big
Isn't it
AJ
like
and Big Justin.
the Rizzler? Is it the Rizzler?
Yeah, like they're all involved.
Those guys?
Yeah, so this is what I'm saying. So like, yeah, those guys. So it's like at Costco when you get the little samples. That's what you have in summer league, and then preseason you get the appetizer. Regular season, that's when you get your first course. All right, and then I guess playoffs is, your second course. No. Regular season is like your salad, all right? You're getting some salad. You're getting the salad, some fruit, some sides, whatever, da da da. And then, playoffs is the main course. Everyone's there, everybody's watching. But I tell you what, you gotta save room for dessert, and dessert is the finals. So that's kind of like the whole cycle. So we're at our little sample size. We got the little sample, just having a little taste of that not playoff basketball, some basketball. Sorry, it's been a long day, guys. But you get a little taste of it, you're feeling good. And that's what the Celtics had. And I tell you what, Seamus, going 4-1, I tell you what, my hopes have been pretty high this, summer league, because I have to say, like, I'm so stoked about this team. I'm like sick. I'm ready for regular season. But then we're gonna be hit with a harsh reality when preseason comes around and George Niang is our starting power forward. It's going to be a little different without Tatum there. But ultimately, back to this game, though, great game. We have to be happy about what we had today. And I tell you what, you've known this, Seamus. I've said throughout all of Summer League, I am big on Isaiah Wong getting a two-way contract with a team. And I tell you what, he showed why he deserves a two-way contract. And it not only being the Celtics, it could be with any other team. He's a guy who showed some heart tonight, and that's just what Isaiah Wong does. And ultimately, the Boston Celtics got the win, and just a fun night for basketball. It was one of those games where you see no Walsh, no Baylor, obviously not a lot of those guys, but no Kenny Lofton. That's just because they're all done letting the younger guys get more experience, and that they did. And it was a fun game to watch. Ben Gregg and Zach Hicks, all of those guys, Hayden Gray, like they really showed out tonight. They really showed out.
Yeah, it was very much a game where the second tier of the Summer League got to showcase themselves tonight because, as you mentioned, a couple guys out of the lineup, and no Amari Williams in the second half had himself a tremendous first half tonight, but didn't play in the second half, and it was essentially all of the guys taking over that we haven't seen too much of during the Summer League yet. Tonight's game, they really got their opportunity, and you saw Miles Norris tonight. 17 minutes played, 18 minutes played in the starting lineup. We saw Kendall Brown in the starting lineup as well. Those were two members of the starting rotation today that we weren't used to seeing in the starting lineup yet. We did for the Celtics. We saw Hayden Gray off the bench. Haven't seen much of him during the summer league. Continue to see Jalen Bridges and Isaiah Wong. However, we saw them in a little bit increased of a role today off the bench. We've seen them here and there throughout the summer league, but we saw their roles increased within their respected positions today. Jalen Bridges more of the forward, and Isaiah Wong more of the guard, ball handler, of course. Roles. I mean, those are the two roles they play within their positions. But at the bottom of the roster, Aaron Scott, Zach Hicks, Benjamin Gregg, saw all three of those guys today. We really haven't seen them at all during the summer league, so this was really their day to go out there and showcase their skills in front of everybody out at Vegas. And they came up with some pretty substantial minutes. Aaron Scott, 18 minutes played. Zach Hicks, 16 and a half minutes played. Both of them 18 and a half, 16 and a half minutes played. And then Benjamin Gregg, nearly 20 minutes played tonight. So after not playing for most of the summer league, those three guys really get a run in tonight with the summer league Celtics. The Celtics, they started out pretty fast in this game. And I think what's been a theme of this Celtics summer league team is when they're getting after it on defense and when they're playing in transition, they're playing fast paced on the offensive end of the floor and playing unselfishly, they're playing their most efficient basketball. And we saw that at the beginning of the game tonight, where the Celtics, they were playing fast paced, they were finding open shots, and they were the aggressor on the floor. They were simply the aggressor on both ends of the floor. And we saw the Celtics, they jumped out to an early lead, however, relinquished that lead pretty quickly to the Hawks because the Hawks flipped it around on them. The Hawks were playing in transition. They were getting easy, wide open threes to go in transition. And then on the offensive end of the floor, the Celtics slowed down a little bit and became a little bit, I don't want to say hectic, but some of the shots in summer league sometimes can be a little not the best shots, quick trigger. We've seen that a couple of times play out in the summer league, and that's what hampered Boston at the beginning of this game. However, was ironed out throughout most of the contest, and we saw out on the court today the Celtics were just able to play a more sound game all around. They forced 16 turnovers to the Hawks, while themselves only turned the ball over 12 times. So there was a 4 turnover discrepancy in there, and 12 turnovers not too bad for the Celtics today. I mean, that's not not an amazing number we're going to do backflips over, but in summer league, 12 turnovers, I mean, but we've been seeing 18, 19, 20 turnovers out of teams in summer league, so to see only 12 is certainly nice. And the possession discrepancy too, 72 shots for the Hawks, 80 for the Celtics, and the Celtics shot a much better percentage. So not only did they shoot a better percentage the Celtics did today, but they took more shots. So anytime you're doing those two things, right, you're shooting at a higher clip, but also taking more shots, you should own a pretty significant advantage in the game. And then rebounding wise, the Hawks 39 rebounds tonight to the Celtics 50. So the Celtics heavily out rebounding the Hawks. The Hawks only 9 offensive rebounds, the Celtics 13 offensive rebounds tonight. So the Celtics were definitely winning all of the marginal battles in this game. And then you go to things like second chance points, 14-10 in favor of the Celtics. And the assist number tonight, the Celtics assisted on they assisted, let's see, well 20, they came up with 24 assists tonight, but on how many made shots, the Celtics made 37 shots. So 24 assists on 37 shots. That's fairly good for a summer league team, and that's also been very reflective of how the Celtics likely want to play going into next season. They want to be a little bit more unselfish. Last season, the Celtics, and let's face it, the last 2 seasons, Celtics were a little more isolation oriented within their play, and the assist number wasn't always high. Now, we did see games out of the Celtics last 2 years where they just racked up the assist, most notably during that final stretch of last season, 24-25, when it seemed like they were putting up 30 assists per night. But I've noticed within this Celtics Summer League team, just very selfish team in general, period. But the assist number on X amount of made shots, right? And we're doing the percentage of that too, 24 of 37. So let's see what tonight that would be at 24 of 37. So we're always looking at the percentage of assist to non-assisted uh, field goal attempt makes. And tonight the Celtics were at what? So they were at 64.8%, so 64.9% in terms of shots assisted That was how many shots. 64.9% of their shots made were assisted tonight, and that's a fairly good mark for a summer league team, and that's the mark that you want to see the Celtics continuously inch towards next season and even be beyond. Let's face it, let be beyond that point. If you can get up to 70%, 80% of your shots, I mean, you're doing something that's just that's if you're looking at the game of basketball, it's very hard to do that. But some teams, when they're playing that way, playing very unselfishly, can achieve that status. And the Celtics, they have the team next year to potentially do that, or I should say, next year's team, the Celtics are going to need to do that a little bit more than they have in the past. Because just think, we have Jason Tatum out; he's your main isolation scorer. If you take him out of the equation, you're going to need to find other methods of scoring, and within that, it's going to be a more team oriented, more collective from the group of guys. And I thought within the summer league circuit, the Celtics are starting to ramp up and prepare for that from a coach's perspective, right? And Matt Reynolds, assistant coach of the Celtics out at Summer League. And we've heard Joe Mazzulla just recently with Julian Edelman talk about how he's talking with his assistant coaches every day. It's a very collaborative effort within the assistant coach's office and Joe Mazzulla and the entire coaching staff. So it does feel as if some of the philosophy going into next season was sprinkled onto the summer league team a little bit, and you can see that within the assist numbers, but just the overall all around play from the Celtics summer league team when it comes to the passing, the unselfishness, and also the defensive end of the floor. I mean, this team is the entire summer league. They were very active on the defensive end of the floor, and we saw that yet again tonight. I was hoping at the end there we could come in and say, "Wow, 101 to 77. Oh, we held them under 80. The Celtics held them under 80." But then we saw that three go in as the buzzer sounded, and it's a
Well,
101 to
well,
80
can I,
contest.
Seamus? Well, may I say something? I feel like that would have never happened if Isaiah Wong didn't take a, 24-second shot clock violation, but he was going for it. So I mean that gave him a little more motivation to strike back.
Well, I was watching a video last night on Malik Beasley, and Pablo Torre was investigating with he was investigating the whole Malik Beasley situation, and I gotta say the end of games all of a sudden become a little interesting. I'm always wondering who's playing to the very end, right? Very interesting when you see a player playing to the very end. You wonder, are there implications on the table for this player?
Well,
You
may
never
I
really know.
ask, what from watching that video was Malik Beasley playing till the very end?
Yeah, he's actually one of the better garbage time players in the league. Randomly, I just we can't get too deep into that because I gotta say there's a lot more to say on the Malik Beasley front, and even go watch our free agency special, folks. We talked about Malik Beasley and all of the implications around the Pistons and who they signed, Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert.
Watch.
Actually, during our free agency specials, Karis LeVert, he was the one who was signed. Duncan Robinson came later, but ultimately that deserves its own live segment, as does tonight's lead tracker, the Sea of Green, very much present in the last Celtics Summer League game of 2025, the last game before October 2025 here in July. And the Celtics, they put out that sea of green once again. It was only tied once. The Atlanta Hawks, biggest lead of the game. There we saw the Celtics. Look, this was almost a wire to wire win. The Celtics, they came out, started hot, right? They started the game, I believe it was 7-0, 8-0. It was somewhere around there. The Hawks, they steam back in this game. They run back. They take the lead for that little dot of red in here. That little dot of red. The Hawks take the lead. And then the rest of the game, it's all Celtics from here on out. Little divot there in the third quarter after halftime, but you see right before the end of the third quarter going into the fourth, the Celtics really left no doubt in this game whatsoever. But Griffin, looking at the Celtics performance tonight, what do you believe the Celtics did well in this game, in their last summer league game?
I believe it was just team basketball. I mean, at the end, I think it was Ben Gregg or it may have been Hayden Gray. I don't know, the two white boys. I don't know what one it was, but you saw them obviously popping off
One's
at the
smaller than the other, I gotta say. One's a little
wait.
smaller than the other.
Was it Hayden Gray or Ben Gregg? I can't tell.
Ben Gregg, I believe, is the bigger one.
Okay, so
Hayden
Ben.
Gray, Hayden Gray is a very interesting player. He's from the University of California, San Diego, and he only played 2 seasons at San Diego yet. He's here with the Celtics summer league squad, as I try to get my charger into my phone over here before the stream goes black on me once again. But Hayden, I'll say he's from the University of California, San Diego, and only played 2 seasons there. Yet finds himself on this Celtics summer league squad, and this was one of his only runs. I mean, Hayden Gray, he he's a player I was kind of interested in seeing coming into the summer league, given the just look at the reps in college. I mean, only 2 years in college at a small school. I wondered how did the Celtics even find this guy? How do
Well,
they even sift through the candidates for this roster from a player perspective and find Hayden Gray? And we this is one of the only games we really saw him in major minutes. And he played 20 minutes tonight. He's one of those other players who he was kind of on the I mentioned Aaron Scott, Zach Hicks, and Benjamin Gregg, but Hayden Gray was very much in that group of players too. Didn't get much of a run throughout summer league yet. Received 20 minutes tonight, and I'm just very interested. Like he's one of those players that we would love to interview on here to see exactly or to find out exactly how he made his way onto the summer league roster and what kind of connections that lay upon his horizon because. He's
I
just
tell
not
you,
a player. Like he's just one of those players. Like other players in here, Isaiah Wong, Jalen Bridges, and Kendall Brown, they've all had NBA experience. And then you have all the Celtics two-way guys, draft picks. We know their stories, right? But a guy like Hayden Gray, and even the guys at the bottom, right? Some of them went to Gonzaga, Penn State. Isaiah Wong went to Miami. Some of these guys we know in college, but Hayden Gray is just an unknown entity. That's what makes him so interesting. And I'm not saying he's a bad player or anything. I'm not putting him down in any regard. I'm saying his story is very interesting on how exactly he made it to the Celtics summer league squad given where he was only playing 2 years at San Diego.
well, that's going to be an interesting question if any of these players obviously fall to Maine. That'll be an interesting question to ask them. But yeah, no, I agree. But ultimately, I feel like it was very team basketball, though, Seamus. And I think you could say the same. They played as a team. And like you said, it wasn't selfish basketball. I mean, yeah, Isaiah Wong had 18 points, but he was also, playing team basketball as well. And I look at that too. It was hustle plays like Hugo Gonzalez when obviously one of the notable plays for me was when he was obviously playing great on defense and he fought through the screen and they called a foul. But you look at that, it's the hustle plays. It's the fact that and this is going to be a podcast that's going to come out, so stay tuned for it. But like Marquise Holmes said, is Maurice Holmes. Sorry, I messed it up. But like he said, it's honestly the fact that there's more fouls. The defense looks a lot better, and I will testify for that. I enjoyed watching this game because just the defense and just team basketball. I mean, we look back to last season, Seamus, and I will say one of the notable games was that one at Phoenix. We look back at that one, and that was a very team oriented basketball game. Like the team came together, and that was one of the best basketball games to watch. And the Celtics played team basketball tonight, and it was fun. And I think that's ultimately what came away with that big, blowout win for the Boston Celtics is they played team basketball throughout all 4 quarters, and they kept their foot on the gas pedal. That's a thing that I emphasize a lot. That the Celtics in particular need to keep their foot on the gas pedal and you see that go way down, but however they kept their foot on the gas pedal all night. They would get a little edge, but the Celtics were like, all right, let's keep our foot on the gas pedal, we're going to keep cruising, and you came away with a big dub tonight, a 21-point win.
It was a great way to close out summer league too
It
because
was it was Seamus.
overall the Celtics summer league performance it was. I mean, from start to finish, the Heat game was the roughest game. But even in that game, the Celtics
They
they won the
came
possession
back.
battle, won the turnover battle, and kept themselves in the game in a game they really shouldn't have been in. So even in that game, you lose by 4. You have a chance to win if you're the Celtics down the stretch. Was out executed by the Heat down the stretch. The Heat just found better shots, and there was a couple of lucky bounces for the Heat as well. Now the Celtics realistically had no business winning that game, but again, they win the possession battle, win the turnover battle, and if they win that game, it's possible the Celtics are competing in the semifinals yesterday and even tonight in the championship game, which is airing right now between the Sacramento Kings and the
Can
Charlotte
we
Hornets. The Sacramento
get
Kings going for their third summer league title tonight. So this is where the Kings thrive, everybody. This is where the Kings thrive. The Celtics could
can
have been in that spot, and that's how good they were in the summer league. Is we were talking about at the beginning, could this be a summer league championship team? Now, one loss to the Heat completely eradicated that and put that out the window, which we know this year, summer league and summer league in the past, there used to be this huge elimination tournament. Now there's no tournament. So this could have been the Celtics' first game on the road to a championship, yet it was just the consolation bracket, and there was really no bracket. Let's face it, they're just playing a singular game, and it was one of the last three games in the summer league schedule. We actually got, we got the Sunday night slot the Celtics did randomly, but the Celtics team, this summer league team, was just about as good as any other team out in Vegas this year. They really were defensively, and from the offensive perspective. I kept saying this about the team throughout the time during summer league is they're just a very unselfish ball club with no real star attacker or scorer. There really wasn't a guy at summer league for the Celtics that you we considered leaning on to be the scoring prowess. You think about guys in the past such as Carson Edwards or Peyton Pritchard, right? And the Celtics have leaned on those guys, or even past rookies, right? Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, right? Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown back in summer league years ago. Celtics have had main rookies before, scoring rookies, isolation oriented rookies who they've leaned on at summer league to go and score the ball and create offense. Yet this team, I didn't feel as if that player exists because the two best players was Jordan Walsh and Baylor Shireman. Those were the Celtics' two standard players on the Celtics summer league squad, and those two guys are complementary pieces. They're not isolation scorers. If you want to if you want to say one of those guys is close to that, it's Jordan Walsh, and he's just, I mean, he's never going to be that with the main. I keep saying main Celtics team, and it sounds like main
well,
Celtics,
Seamus,
but
we
the
gotta
regular season Celtics, right? The regular season Celtics. Oh, there it is. But regardless, Jordan Walsh with the regular season Celtics, right? It's not going to be that isolation oriented player. Maybe a little bit in summer league, but it's not all there. It's not always efficient. But both Shireman and Walsh just not isolation scores. The Celtics didn't have that overbearing isolation presence or scoring presence on their roster when it came from a creation, a ball handling perspective. And I think that's what ultimately played a part in this team playing so unselfishly over the course of summer leagues because nobody was really molded to take over that role of I'm the guy. And it was more of a collective effort along the way. It was okay, here's Hugo Gonzalez. Uh, Here's Hugo Gonzalez with a three from the perimeter, or here's Miles Norris with a transition opportunity, or here's Baylor Shireman. We saw Baylor. We could talk about Baylor Shireman some more, but we talked about him the other night, which he didn't play tonight, but he now and maybe us talking about him the other night closed out his summer league. But he's somebody on the offensive end of the floor who's going to come up with a bucket every now and then. Jordan Walsh. I mean, all these guys. Max Schulga. I know Max Schulga had a rough summer league shooting the ball, and I kind of went on with him the other day from a technicality standpoint, outside of his horrid shooting numbers during summer league. But you just see the collective nature of this team. It was not one player. It was all these different guys stepping up and coming up with buckets at different times, like a Hugo Gonzalez and Amari Williams, a Kendall Brown, and Miles Norris. Those were some of the starters tonight. Shulga, the other starter, but then Shireman, Walsh, Charles Bassey at the beginning. It was a very collective effort from the Celtics summer league squad, and a player who contributed to that collective effort tonight, who we really haven't talked about at all yet this summer league. It's Isaiah Wong, right? Isaiah Wong,
I got
former.
my guy. I've been talking about him. I've said Seamus, that's a guy you gotta keep your eye on because that's a
No, I
guy.
got to give you credit. You did say that at the beginning of summer league because former point guard for the University of Miami took him to the Elite Eight, took him to the Final Four, and now he's here with the Boston Celtics. He's been under two-way contracts with both the Pacers and the Hornets. And at the beginning of summer league, kind of looked at it as a player who just here, right, just here on the Celtics summer league roster. We weren't considering him for anything more, but he played well at summer league and furthermore, from that, he is a player who's been on two-way contracts for other teams. Not too many two-way contracts left for Isaiah Wong out there, but should we maybe be considering Isaiah Wong for a two-way spot in the future, or even, let's just face it, a training camp invite? Do you think Isaiah Wong receives that training camp invite? And if so, does he have a
I would
chance to
say,
grab another two-way spot?
well, I would say
Slot,
he would
spot,
definitely
slot,
get
whatever it
a
is.
training camp invite. I think he definitely deserves that. I mean, you see his play tonight. I mean, and the Celtics have leaned on him throughout summer league. I mean, him and Kendall Brown are guys who they've kept eyes on, and you could tell today, obviously, when they back did the back end of the bench, had them all play. Isaiah Wong has been playing pretty much all summer league. So you look at that, I'm in no doubts that he'll get a training camp invite, and I feel like the Celtics are very highly on him. They posted after the game about his highlights, so they're very highly on Isaiah Wong. Do I think he'll get a two-way contract with the Celtics? That's iffy because they're full right now, not official with Amari and Shulga, but do I think he'll get it? There's a chance he get one with the Celtics, but I look at this. He will definitely, whether it be with the Celtics or not with the Celtics, I see him in the 25-26 season getting a two-way contract. Now, it might, again, and I've quoted this. You guys are probably sick and tired of me saying this take, but like a Ron Harper Jr. last year. He went to training camp with the Celtics. He played for the Celtics in the summer league. He went and played for the main Celtics for I think about a month, and then got that two-way contract with the Pistons. Isaiah Wong is a guy who could fall in that category. Kendall Brown, same guy. Jalen Bridges, same type of player. Kenny Lofton Jr., a same guy, and that's why I feel like Seamus, the Celtics had so much success because you didn't just have one guy like that. You didn't just have two guys like that. You didn't just have three guys like that. You had like four guys, maybe even five or six. You had so many guys who are worthy of a two-way contract. Now you look back at some teams and it's like there's a lot of guys on there that aren't gonna be even close to a two-way player. So I think that helps, and I don't doubt one bit that Isaiah Wong won't be playing at training camp for the Boston Celtics. I think he'll get an invite, and who knows? Maybe if he dominates, you could see him getting a two-way contract with the Celtics, or if not the Celtics, another team. But I hope, Seamus, and I hope this. I hope he ends up either with the Celtics or with the main Celtics because we got to talk it up with Isaiah Wong. We got to.
Well, I certainly agree with you on from the standpoint of the Celtics. There are a lot of players on the Celtics summer league squad you could consider for a two-way spot, even though the rumor has been Amari Williams, Max Shulga, those two-way spots are secure, and Miles Norris is already in the third. We've mentioned it on this program how nothing is official until the ink is dry on the paper, and even then, things can change. I mean, things can change when it comes to the two-way spots, and we saw it last year. And Watson out halfway through the season. We've seen it in the past before with the Celtics and flipping and flopping around those two-way spots in the past, and it's definitely still up in the air of what those two-way spots will
Well,
look like
Seamus,
come the
I have
season.
I have a question for you. We won't talk about Miles Norris because he already has a two-way contract with the Celtics. Obviously, you get rid of that, da da da. But are you taking a Kenny Lofton Jr., a Jalen Bridges, a obviously Isaiah Wong, or a Kendall Brown over a Amari Williams or a Max Shulga? Are you taking any of those players over those two guys? And if so, who would it be and what players?
I like the upside of Amari Williams and Max Shulga. Obviously,
I'm
I
taking someone
was
for
in on
Shulga.
Amari Williams before he was on the Celtics. I mean, that was very documented on the draft special. But Max Shulga, people are going to look at him and think he's the odd man out of why do we need to keep him? Look at his shooting line in the summer league. I mean, Max Shulga, rough shooting lines in the summer league. I mean, he was consistently 1 of 5 almost every single night. That being said, I loved his control with the ball on the offensive end of the floor. I always thought he was making the right decisions, taking the right shots, and he wasn't he was slotted in as the main ball handling guard, the main facilitator on the Celtics offense, and he wasn't somebody who was selfish with the ball, looking to put up the most ridiculous attempts. I mean, at summer league, it's very common to see the main ball handlers try to do a little bit too much with the ball because let's face it, all of these guys are going for roster spots and they're trying to do the most with the smallest amount of reps they're awarded at summer league. And I thought Max Shulga, he just wasn't one of those players. He was a little more patient with the ball. He was in control with the ball. And he's a little bit bigger of a guard in the sense of he's got some length, and there's definitely some fluidity and some quickness with him. And he's 6'4". And if you can have a 6'4" point guard in your roster like that, and develop him at the back end, that's a fine player to have, because he does remind me, Max Shulga, if he reminds me of any player, I I really see Derek White compared to a lot of players out there, a lot of players compared to Derek White, and I simply don't agree. But Max Shulga is the one player that I look at and I go, he's a little Derek White esque, right? He's not going to be a an isolation scorer, but he's going to be able to go downhill, attack a little bit. He's going to be in control of the ball. He's going to make the right decisions. On the defensive end, he's going to give you something worthwhile on that end of the floor. And he's not an overbearing offensive player yet. He can be involved. Specific, obviously, with the regular season Celtics, he's not going to be involved a ton initially. But say with the summer league Celtics, he can be involved quite a bit without having to put up a massive scoring line, or needing the ball in his hands constantly, or needing to put up shot after shot after shot. I mean, that's the problem with some players at summer league, is they can make an impact, but they need the ball all the time, or they need to take the most amount of shots out of their team, and the efficiency just isn't always there. Shulga, the shooting efficiency wasn't there, but I felt like the all around play was pretty fair out of him otherwise, and that's why in looking at where he comes from, VCU, and also the age of himself, you'd have to think there's a little bit more upside to him than a guy like Kenny Lofton, who's been in the league, been with multiple teams, and multiple teams have unfortunately given up on Kenny Lofton. And even Jalen Bridges and Isaiah Wong too. They've been with multiple teams, and it's the unknown is more valuable than the known with those guys. Okay, because when you know, okay, the Hornets have seen Isaiah Wong, the Pacers have seen Isaiah Wong, the Suns have seen Jalen Bridges, right? The Grizzlies have seen Kenny Lofton, the Sixers have seen Kenny Lofton. They're more known players, right? They're known players versus Max Shulga. What do we know about him? Oh, he went to VCU and played at VCU. We don't know him as an NBA player yet. So that's what's more intriguing about a guy like Max Shulga compared to some of the other players on the Celtics Summer League roster who have come from known areas of the league. And Kendall Brown's in that conversation too with the Pacers. I mean, all these guys, it's one of those, the unknown is just a little bit more valuable than the known. When the unknown, you just, again, I just, Max Shulga, we don't know what he is as an
Would
NBA
it
player
would it
whatsoever,
shock
versus all these other guys, they've had a little bit of experience.
would it shock you though if you saw, Shulga not being on that 2-way contract for Isaiah Wong? Would
It
that
wouldn't shock me, because we've seen in the past. I mean, we just saw with Anton Watson last season. That was halfway through last season, but it can happen at any time. All right, like this is
do you see it
the
though as
business of
summer
basketball
league?
is very much a cutthroat business. It's, you're either getting it done or you're not, and somebody is always coming for your spot. And if that somebody is deemed better than you, well, you're going to lose your spot.
So
That's
you
just how
see
it's
it.
going to
You
work in
see it.
basketball every single
So
time.
you think this could happen though, as far as like coming out of training camp? You could see this even happening that early though.
Of course, no. I'm saying, look, no spot when it comes to two-way spots and 15th 14th roster spots, right? The 14th man, the 15th man on the roster, nothing is ever guaranteed for those guys, nothing,
No.
because there are always players around the league in the G. I mean, Griffin, you've seen a lot of talent
Oh yeah,
down in the G League
all the time.
who are definitely NBA caliber players, but just haven't necessarily found their opportunity yet within an NBA roster or within an NBA rotation. Those guys are always out there, and scouts are always out there looking at those guys. Front offices are always out there looking at those guys. And so, even though you might have Amari Williams, Shulga, and Miles Norris under a two-way, the Celtics are very much always looking at the next two-way guys. All right, the next guys, and how early that comes, and how early that change comes, because two-way players, they're not given year after year after year. The longest tenured two-way player I've seen with the Celtics so far has been JD Davison. Okay,
Yeah.
JD Davison. He's the long. I believe he might be the longest tenured two-way player. I'm trying to think back. I'm fairly certain. No other. I mean, Tremont Waters 2 years, but see, J.D. Davison 3 years. Two-way players don't get too much. I mean, they only have a certain amount of deals. I believe they only have three two-way deals to
Yeah.
burn until they don't have another two-way deal. So you basically have 3 seasons under a two-way deal. So by that third season, or even by that second season, right? They're expected to be at a level where they can contribute to the standard roster. So this is like with two-way players, it's usually and I understand it, they receive three contracts, three two-way contracts, but really teams are planning for 1 2 year scenarios, sometimes three. Again, it's very rare to see 3 year two-way players. It's very rare to see that on a squad. We've seen that with JD Davison, but now he's on a standard now he's taking up a standard roster spot. But it's usually a 1 2 year project with a two-way player. And with that in mind, if it's a 1 2 year project, teams are always looking at the next players to slot into those two-way slots. And most of the time that can be in college, but we know. I mean, look at Miles Norris last season. He's playing with the College Park Skyhawks down in the G League, and all of a sudden he's called up and he's playing with the Maine Celtics, and he's on a two-way contract with the Celtics. So it's not only college, but in the G League and other places around the NBA too. Scouts and front offices are always looking at other players to take over those two-way spots or even take over a standard roster spot because teams are always looking to improve and get better. And when you're talking about the 14th, 15th roster spots and the two-way spots, the three two-way spots, those are positions that can always be upgraded because you're never going to have a superstar in any of those positions unless you have a young star like Jokic or Giannis when they're 20 years old, right? For, but considering that logistic, teams are always looking to change around those spots. I mean, we saw it last season again too with the 25 or the 24-25 Celtics when we saw from the year before O'Shea Brissett and Svi Mykhailiuk. They were they were switched around, and for one reason or the other, free agency, but those players for the Celtics, it was expected after the championship. Yes, we're going to lose a couple of pieces. Now, originally the Celtics kept the main contributing pieces, but the back end of the roster, some of those guys they're going to be shifted around, upgraded, changed.
Oh,
Rookies
yeah.
are going to come in, and that's where I think looking at the training camp ahead of us and the couple months ahead of us, those roster spots are never safe. They're never safe. It doesn't matter if Amari Williams and Max Shulga, they're drafted in the second round. The Celtics want to keep their second round picks. Max Shulga was drafted 57th. He was
Yeah.
almost undrafted. I mean, he was that close to being undrafted. The Celtics pick him 57th. It's completely possible the Celtics come across another player who they can't say no to because we've seen that in the past with the Celtics and other teams where teams sometimes in the summer league stumble upon real NBA players who they can't deny. And even in the past, we've seen tough cuts made because the Celtics have stumbled upon too many NBA players and need to make tough decisions at the back end of the roster. The most notable in 2019 with Javonte Green and Max Strus. Max Strus ultimately was cut from the Celtics roster, and we know Max Strus went on to have quite a nice NBA career, still having a nice NBA career at the moment with the Heat and then eventually with the Cavaliers right now. Javonte Green, same thing. He was the one that was the battle, right? It was Max Strus and Javonte Green. Javonte Green won that spot. Max Strus cut. Max Strus went on to to see his career develop elsewhere. I believe he was in Chicago after the Celtics as well, too. Chicago tore his ACL down to Miami. Then with Cleveland, we see where he's at right now. But then Javonte Green traded to the Bulls, and now with the Cavs, he's been on a couple of other rosters as well, Javonte Green. But that's an example, right, where you have NBA players who Javonte Green and Max Strus went on to become both pretty solid rotational pieces for other teams, including the Celtics with Javonte Green. And that's an example of the Celtics owning too many NBA players on the back end of the roster, needing to make a couple of tough decisions. That's possible with this roster too, where you have a bunch of players who are able, or I should say, the Celtics right now on the summer league squad. If some of these players receive a training camp invite, they're going to be in consideration for those two-way spots, or even if there's a roster spot to hand out. And if there are real NBA players within that mix, and the Celtics are going to go towards the real NBA players instead of, oh, our second round pick. I mean, the second round picks, I understand, yes, you want to keep those guys, but in the past, we've seen the Celtics and other teams, if there are other players available out there, the second round pick status doesn't really mean a thing. I mean, we see, and
No,
even years ago, I'll go back 9 years ago, the Celtics believe they made, let me see, how many picks did they make in the second round? They made, I think, 3 picks in the second round. They made 6 picks in the 2016 NBA draft. The Celtics picked Jaylen Brown, Gershon Yabusele, Ante Zizic, all in the first round. And then the second round, they went Abdel Nader. They went Demetrius Jackson and Ben Bentel. There might have been another player in there. I think it was 6 players. But the point of the story here is, but by the time the offseason was done, Ben Bentel was not even on the training camp roster. I mean, he was on the training camp roster. He wasn't on the main roster, and not the main Celtics roster, the main Red Claws roster. He wasn't on the regular season roster when the regular season came around. He was a second round pick for the Celtics. Now, considering the circumstances, you want to take it with a grain of salt, considering the Celtics picked 6 players that year. So it's really hard to slot 6 players onto a roster. And even then, Yabu and Ante Zizic were his draft and stash players. But under those circumstances, the Celtics cut one of their second round picks.
yeah,
So I'm just saying the whole point of this conversation is nothing is guaranteed for the Celtics whatsoever, or any of the players in the back end of the roster. And I'll say uh, a couple of players on the back end of the roster too. They'll have their shot, whether it's with the Celtics or elsewhere, because we saw a lot of nice play from the Celtics summer league roster this season, and I believe that some of these players will definitely carve themselves out a place later on in time. Even if it's for another G League team, because a lot of these guys, I think we're going to see some of them play in the G League and overseas. They're certainly going to find some of their opportunities. However, another player who could find an opportunity this year with a regular season roster with a standard role as well. Ugo Gonzalez.
Ugo,
Eh,
Ugo.
eh, we need to have this conversation about Gonzalez because I believe coming into the summer league there was a lot of hype. There was a lot of hype surrounding Ugo Gonzalez, and a lot of people were at first confused about the Gonzalez pick, but then they watched some Real Madrid highlights and they quickly turned on the pick in a good way. All right, in a good way, and people started to like the pick and went, I kind of like this Hugo Gonzalez guy. Yet in the summer league, had his moments. Excuse me, had his moments, had his flashes, but sorry, folks. But ultimately was raw for most of the summer league. Was pretty raw for most of the summer league, and Griffin, what are your thoughts on Gonzalez? I just take it over for me here. Just take it
No,
over. I
yeah,
can't
yeah,
even
yeah.
speak
Of
right
course.
now.
I look at Ugo Gonzalez, and I look at this. I feel like Ugo was very, again, like you mentioned, Seamus. At first, everyone was like, "What? Like, why are we picking him? Like, there's so many better picks that we could have other than Ugo, obviously." However, Celtics community quickly turned on Ugo, and they're like, "All right, we love what he's doing. This is a guy who he could affect the game immediately. His defensive presence is always felt, and you saw guys, and I'm not gonna leak any conversations I had, but I've had people talk to me saying." There's no way this guy spends a minute in the main Celtics roster. This guy is gonna go from the get go and play for the Celtics. However, we saw in summer league. Now we saw a lot of great things from Ugo Gonzalez, but we also saw a lot of things where we're like, all right, he's still 19. He still needs to develop. There needs to be a developmental stage in his career because he's 19. He's still learning the game. I mean, this is a guy who didn't see a lot of minutes over in Spain, obviously playing on a stacked roster. He saw the bench a lot. He was playing not, he's a guy who's going to go out there and give it his all. However, again, he's the same age as me. And that's just saying if I, now it's completely different, but that's just like someone said, hey, I'm giving you the keys to the castle. Go play some bench time for the Boston Celtics. I'm gonna, now obviously it's completely different, but it's like he's young and he's not one of those natural, like, all right, I'm ready to be there from the get go. No, he needs time to develop. I wouldn't be shocked if he played a little bit in Maine and then they say, all right, we want, this is a developmental year for the Boston Celtics. I wouldn't be shocked if he got a lot of time with the Celtics this year, mattering the circumstances of the Boston Celtics. However, I feel like this is a guy who he still needs to develop. Again, he's very young. He's 19 years old, and you saw a lot of his game. You saw, all right, there's parts we need to brush up with Hugo Gonzalez. However, I did also see a lot of good things. I thought he was very great on defense. I said it in my initial thoughts. I love the foul that he caused earlier. He's a lot better of a shooter than we even saw over in Spain too. He's a better shooter, and his ceiling might be a little bit higher with that. But there's a lot of good things about Hugo Gonzalez. However, I feel like rushing him and saying, "Hey, look, this guy isn't even going to the G League." No, I feel like that's where you need to hold a pause because he still needs to develop. He's 19. His game isn't completely polished up. He hasn't, for me, he's proved as much as Baylor Shireman has this summer league, and that's Jack Shittily Bob. That's what Baylor Shireman has proved to me. And you guys know I'm big on Baylor, but he didn't prove Jack Skillily Pop, like whatever you call it. He didn't prove anything. Nor did Hugo Gonzalez. Didn't get Hugo Gonzalez to me didn't have a standout game where I'm like, wow, this guy is ready for the Celtics roster. He didn't. Let's keep that out. He did not have a game where I'm like, oh my gosh, Seamus, this is our bench piece. This is the person we've always needed. No, there was none of that. I looked at Hugo Gonzalez and I said, all right, there's something there in his game for sure. But this is a player that needs to develop more. This is a player that we need to see a lot more of. This is a player that I wouldn't mind, if we're down in a game and we need some good defense, having him slot in. I wouldn't mind that, especially in a retooling year. But I look at it still and I'm like, I am not completely comfortable with having this guy play on the Celtics roster from the get-go. Now, say we get to preseason and we see a lot different things from Hugo Gonzalez. Say he's affecting the game in preseason. All right, change my fact right there. But as of right now, he has not wowed me to the point where I'm like, all right, he needs to start in Boston. No, I would start him in Maine, develop him a little more, and see where we go from there. But Seamus, what are your thoughts on Hugo Gonzalez? What do you agree? Because I don't think there was a big wow game for me. Like, I did not see a game where I was like, oh my gosh, this guy needs to be with the Boston Celtics. No, I saw his true age came out, his inexperience came out a little bit. I saw flashes of good things, but at the same time, I'm looking at him and I'm like, all right, there's something there. There's a little blossom, but it's not everything. It's not, it needs to be polished up more. It needs to be toned out. You're proving as much as Walsh has proved in this summer league. But what are your thoughts?
Okay, so Hugo Gonzalez, as I hopefully can keep my voice through this entire segment. So
If not,
Hugo, I'll pass the ball over to you a little sooner next time before I literally run out of air on camera. But ultimately, Hugo Gonzalez, I just sometimes we forget, right, that 19-year-olds play like 19-year-olds. Okay, when we always want to think, oh, 19, 20, 21-year-old can really come in and make an impact. Yeah, maybe a small one, but they're really never going to be that big of a rotation piece unless you're talking about a top 10 pick caliber of player or just and most of the guys, right, let's face it too. Most of the guys who do make an impact, who are picked in the second round or picked in the later rounds, they're sometimes a little older, right? They sometimes are,
they
21
are.
already or 22, or we saw Shireman last year, 23 years old. Some of those guys are a little bit older. Gonzalez, he's cleanly 19, and I thought he showed that throughout the summer league because just a little bit inconsistent of a player, especially on the offensive end of the floor. On the offensive end of the floor, you mentioned his shot and him owning a little bit better of a shot than people thought, but they talked about it on the broadcast. It can be very inconsistent, both within his release and where his feet are. And I'm just not a big fan of his shot mechanics. Some guys I look at in the league, or rather coming into the league, and we mentioned this on the draft special. Some of these guys come in and they own horrendous shooting lines in college from three specifically. But you look at their shooting mechanics and you go, I understand they shot 27% from three at whatever university they went to, but they have a smooth shot, right? Their shooting mechanics look good. It's like the pieces, the tools are there. The percentage isn't there. The makes aren't there, but the shot looks good, right? The mechanics look good. Gonzalez, I don't see that within him. The mechanics look a little shaky. They're inconsistent. His feet, they were talking about on the broadcast, his feet are too wide here. I do notice that too. His feet aren't always set. His release, if you look at his shoulders and his arms, it's almost like I don't know how to demonstrate this, but it's almost like he's a triangle, right? A triangle. You want to
Yeah.
be a straight up and down tree when you shoot. You want to be a firm tree. You want to be a structured building. You want to be going straight up and down. You want to shoot the ball straight, right? You want to put that backspin on the ball. And you want to shoot it straight. And you want to have that. You want to have your feet and you want to essentially have your feet, your knees, your hips, and your shoulders, along with your elbows, kind of all in a squared motion, right? Not necessarily all in a line, but
No. Yeah.
squared away. And Gonzalez, that squaring, right? The squaring should look like this, right? There we go. Should look a
It
little bit
looks
like this.
cockeyed.
For
It
him,
looks
it's like
cockeyed.
this. It's like this. It's like this. It's like he's wide at his base, and when he comes up, he's thin. So it's
Can
wide
I?
into thin. It needs to
Well,
be a
may I
little
ask
more
a
up and
question then?
down, up and down. And that's the
That,
that's the issue with his shot.
and well, then may I ask a question for you? Are you getting rid of the fact then he's going to start the season with the Celtics? Are you going to get rid of the fact that he's going to
Well, no, he's going
spend?
to start the season with the Celtics, but I believe yes, he's going to spend a lot of time in Maine, which
Yep.
to me
Thank you.
he's almost
Thank
raw
you.
enough that look. You could make an argument that Gonzalez is raw enough to keep him overseas. Which have they signed him yet? Have the Celtics signed
Wait, say that again. Say that whole take again. Sorry. You could argue the fact that what?
Ugo Gonzalez? You could argue the fact Ugo Gonzalez is raw enough to keep overseas and stash overseas. Because I see a world where right now, like coming into this summer league and even next season, the thought is, well, Gonzalez, yes, he's 19, but there's some activity there. He's going to be slotted in. He was drafted as a complimentary player. He wasn't drafted as somebody who's going to be later on in time alongside Brown and Tatum as a top tier guy. He's going to be a supplementary piece on the side, whether a bench piece or another starter, a quality starter alongside Tatum and Brown. He's not going to be a star player. Gonzalez is just not going to be a star player in the future. So that's where some of the argument came into play of, well, he can slot in this year, he can play minimal minutes, and the Celtics can develop him in the regular season rotation during a bridge year when some of the minutes don't matter per se as much as years past when they're competing for a championship. There was some of that argument on the table where we looked at Gonzalez and said there's a definitive role on the team for him, whether that's a little bit bigger of a role in the rotation, a bigger bench role, or the smallest bench role. There's a role. But during the summer league, Gonzalez has displayed a rawness to his game, which it includes the shot, the offensive end of the floor, some of the stakes on the offensive end of the floor, and defensively, I thought he did an okay job. Now there were moments where you could say, "Oh, a little even bullied here and there," and so well, that's another conversation.
Yeah.
But what he showed the summer league, he's definitely more of a player who is going to be spending a lot of time in Maine.
Thank you.
He's definitely a
I
player
want to say
who's
this.
he's more of a player that would spend time in Maine than with the regular season roster. And under those circumstances, I just wonder why wouldn't you stash him overseas if you're the Celtics? He's only 19. He'll be playing with Real Madrid, a very good ball club overseas. If the Celtics don't sign him, they preserve a roster spot they could use on somebody else for the time being. That's an argument. I don't know if Gonzalez did enough in the summer league to really convince me. Oh, he's going to be anything more than somebody who's stashed down in Maine this season. And if he's stashed down in Maine, why not just stash him overseas in Real Madrid? The argument against that is, well, he's going to get more minutes in Maine, and he could play with the Celtics roster here and there. And I would the scenario of Gonzalez playing with the Celtics roster here and there, and mostly in Maine, is probably a little bit better than just stashing him overseas and keeping him in a place where he was playing. I mean, he was playing under 10 minutes a game over in Real Madrid, so it's very possible you look at the repetitions of that, right? This is the logistics of repetitions, and go, well, we just want to the Celtics would just want Gonzalez here in America. But regardless, the whole point of this is Gonzalez is just way more of a raw prospect than I think some of us. I think what's funny is when he was initially drafted, everybody was going, "Who is this guy? What's going
Well,
on?"
I love this, Seamus.
But then they came around on him. But then after coming
And then
around
they
on him,
thought he was
we're
God.
kind
And
of
then they
back to the
thought he
point
was
of
God.
not who is this guy, but where is he? Is he really going to slot into the rotation at any point this season in a realistic manner? Without the only way I see him slotting into the rotation is if, well, obviously if he Gonzalez improves during training camp and preseason and all that, but it's if the Celtics aren't competing.
Yeah.
And the
And
Celtics,
I
I
will
think, are going to compete next season. They're not going to compete for a championship, but they're gonna do exactly what Brad Stevens said in his press conference. They're going to put their best foot forward. And if the Celtics are going to put their best foot forward, there's not going to be a ton of minutes for Hugo Gonzalez because he's just a play. He's I see him as a player that potentially is on a level lower than Jordan Walsh and Baylor Shireman right now, and those are two players we're even questioning what roles do they have in the rotation and what kind of. I mean, the conversation on Shireman the other night was, will he be at Summer League for a third time next season? Right, he was supposed to kind of make his mark this Summer League, didn't play tonight, they shut him down, but didn't really make his mark during this Summer League circuit. And we were wondering, next season, yes, he had a nice 20-game sample size last year, but what will be the real impact of Shireman next season? So the fact that we're even questioning Shireman and Walsh's standing in the rotation next year, and we're even questioning, let's face it, Walsh's spot on the roster, and we'll get into a conversation on him here in a little bit. But considering that we're even questioning those players, Gonzalez, he might be a tier below those guys. And if we're questioning Shireman and Walsh's minutes, and Gonzalez is a tier below, I mean, how many minutes are
may
there
I say,
realistically going to be for Gonzalez over this season? I'm really turning the corner in this regard from there are going to be some minutes available for Gonzalez, and slotting him into the rotation makes sense. I'm turning the corner into I
well,
don't feel like this player is
well,
going
Seamus,
to play too much for the Celtics this year.
well, may I say, I feel like the only player in this summer league who we've drafted that really makes the case for even getting and makes the case. I'm not saying definite, but I would feel comfortable giving him a little sample size is Amari Williams, the guy that
I
you and
knew where you
Dan.
were going with that. Literally, the only player on the Celtics Summer League roster that you would consider, other than maybe Charles Bassey.
But
Obviously,
Bassey doesn't
Shireman and
count. I'm
Walsh are
saying the
understanding
drafted
spots,
players. Out of those
but
three,
right.
it's Amari Williams. You look at that. I mean, what he did, and you said it too. You said it like a Baylor Shireman type player, the ones that are older and can bring their game immediately because they have it developed more. Amari Williams is 23 years old. He's a guy who's older, and you could tell he's a lot more experienced than a Max Shulga, than a Ugo Gonzalez. You could tell that he's more NBA ready than they are, and that's the
They had
only play.
Amari Williams running point guard for part of this game. I don't want to say point guard. He wasn't necessarily handling the ball, but he was bringing the ball up, and
But you know
it
why?
wasn't like he was going one-on-one isolation scoring type of bit, right? They were letting him handle the ball at the top of the key a little bit and make a couple of reads from the top of the key and bring the ball up the floor. That was pretty interesting. I'm just saying, like, that
And
is
he
why Amari Williams is so interesting. Is not only the defensive upside of him, he's so long and athletic, and we saw him deter a lot of shots throughout this summer league circuit. But offensively, just a tremendous passer and somebody who you could maybe feel comfortable giving the ball to every now and then in a high post scenario, top of the key scenario, even low post scenario. I wonder, the low post scoring has to come along a little bit for Amari and some of the moves down there, but just I'm sorry. I loved Amari Williams before. The
No,
draft, you know
and
this, Griffin, and even this summer league, he's the one player I looked at throughout the summer league and went, I mean, he's not the
no,
one
I
player,
agree.
okay? He's not the
And
one player, but one of the
the
few making a case to further his minutes on
he's
within the
the only
rotation next season.
again, he's the only rookie in the circumstances that the Celtics are in with the big man position. I think out of the three rookies that we drafted, he's the only one I feel comfortable saying, "Hey, I'll give you a two-way contract." That's the only one I feel comfortable with right now.
Well, yeah. What's funny though is Gonzalez is likely going to be under a standard deal. Well, that's what I'm
I know
saying. Is Gonzalez
would
even
which
signed yet?
Amari deserves it. It's like I would feel a lot more happy if Amari got that, being the circumstance that the Celtics are in with big man depth. I would be so much more confident and comfortable with Amari having that over.
Gonzalez Gonzalez did sign with the Celtics, by the way, so he's not going to be a draft and stash guy. So get rid of that conversation. What's hilarious about that conversation is,
But he can still
let's so
play.
that what
He's still able to play in Maine, correct?
well, it's all yes, because Walsh has been playing
Yeah,
in
but I
Maine.
feel like
Tillman
it's
went
more
down to
so.
Maine. Like Porzingis was in Maine last year. Remember that for a small
Yeah, I
period of
do. I
time.
do. No, he was at the Arbosh Center.
But what's funny about Gonzalez is Brad Stevens said it initially when he was drafted. Won't be a draft and stash guy. He's going to come overseas, or come from overseas rather. Some summer league stats on the screen: 76 games in 11 days. That's pretty nice for the summer league. Just saying. But coming overseas, right? He's going to come overseas. Hugo Gonzalez is, and during the summer league, felt like starting. He's going to be on the Celtics. You see some of the defense. That's the thing with Gonzalez. The defensive upside is there for him. That is there, and that's one of those as the defense on the defensive end of the floor, the activity, the athleticism, the quickness, it all matters. It's all heightened on that end. Offensively, you can have those things, right? Athleticism, you can have the quickness, but if you don't have the skill, right? If you can't really dribble the ball at all, you can't put it on the floor, can't shoot the ball, can't score the ball, can't finish around the rim. When you don't have those intangibles, it's much harder to make an impact in the game of basketball than it is on the defensive end if you just have athleticism and quickness and speed and IQ. Gonzalez has the defensive instincts and the defensive tools. I'll give him that. But offensively, definitely a very raw player. But he was thought of as maybe a draft and stash player. Brad Stevens shot it down in the summer league. Was initially thought of as interesting player. Then it goes back to how many minutes is he really going to get to now? Obviously, he's under contract with the Celtics. Just an interesting. I think here's the thing. He's 19. Gonzalez is 19, and this is what we really should expect out of a 19-year-old, and maybe we're giving it too much of a spotlight from the standpoint of the Celtics needing another rotation piece, right? Looking at the roster right now, the Celtics, it would be nice to see them gain another rotation piece somewhere. That is where I feel like the conversation with Gonzalez can get a little out of hand, is thinking, okay, he's supposed to be a rotation guy with the Celtics, yet that's just what we found out in the summer league circuit was Gonzalez is going to be a main Celtic rotation piece, and Portland, Maine. I kept saying Maine Celtics as in regular season Celtics, but it's going to be more with the Maine Celtics this year than with the regular season Celtics, the regular standard roster. I think that's just what we're coming to find out in the summer league. But that's what you said on draft night, Griffin, and that should be really the expectation out of Celtics Nation. But because of where the roster sits right now, because of those circumstances, and because of the fact Gonzalez was the highest draft pick Brad Stevens has ever made, and given, I mean, he was only the 28th overall pick, but still the highest pick Brad Stevens has ever made. Some the fan base and a lot of people out there started to culminate the idea of Gonzalez maybe being a little bit more impactful of a player than he ultimately is. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah. Wait.
What's going
Wait.
on,
Say that.
Griffin? You seem confused.
Sorry. Glitched out for a second. Say that last part.
No, would that be a fair assessment of, say, the entire Celtics nation, where we are right now? Okay,
Oh yeah.
where the
Yeah.
Celtics are right now. the roster needs another rotation piece. Okay,
No,
it's
totally.
not
No,
a full roster, and a lot of people formulated the idea of Gonzalez potentially making an impact on the roster. When now we're looking at him at summer league going
yeah,
probably going to
and
be more of the main
that's why
Celtic
I
than a
wanted to
Boston
shoot down.
Celtic.
Well, Seamus, that's why I wanted to shoot down the narrative of this guy. So, like, look, yes, behind closed doors, he might have been tearing apart the main Celtics team. Yes, all right, I get that. But from what we saw, what was publicized on ESPN and what we saw was just absolutely not what we were hearing. And it's like, you saw his true age, like you said. You saw he was 19. You could tell he was 19, and you could tell that he's just not NBA ready. Like, that's what you came to the conclusion. It. And again, Seamus, I'm carrying what you said. Look at this right here. This is where he should be playing from what I saw in summer league. It's just undeniable. That's where he should be playing right now. He's not ready. If Baylor Shireman, where he was now, obviously the circumstances of the roster were completely different last year. However, if Baylor Shireman started in Maine last year, Ugo Gonzalez, and if Amari Williams is starting in Maine this year, Ugo Gonzalez should too, because there's no way Ugo Gonzalez is more NBA ready than Amari Williams. That's just what it is.
Yeah, I would definitely agree on that statement. But another player who we saw a lot of in Maine last season and who's played with the Maine Celtics over time and played with this year's Celtics Summer League team as well as Ugo Gonzalez, who we just talked about. But Jordan Walsh. Jordan Walsh didn't play tonight. Okay, the Celtics shut him down and was ejected in the Miami Heat game right before halftime. Had himself an interesting summer league. Couple of solid games in there, but the all-around game was a bit questionable from Jordan Walsh. We maybe wanted to see a little bit more from Walsh. But given this is Jordan Walsh's now third summer league, did Jordan Walsh do enough in this year's summer league to further his case for a roster spot next season, especially considering us having the conversation of will Jordan Walsh even be on the roster come regular season time?
Well, I'm gonna start this off. Would I prefer Charles Bassey over Jordan Walsh? Absolutely yes. Would I prefer a Kendall Brown or over a Jordan Walsh? Debatable, but I would say yes. Would I
That's
prefer?
one of those shiny new things. I think Walsh is better than Brown.
It's a question
They're
though.
different types of players, but Walsh is just a little more
I
advanced.
agree, but they're close. But they're close, Seamus. And then Isaiah Wong, again, it's close. So it's like, if you have these guys who are making the case to make it close, like, it's just questionable. And I thought you heard it on the broadcast today that the Celtics are looking to continue their development with Jordan Walsh this season. So I really would be shocked if they move off of Walsh. I really would, just because you even heard today they're still trying to make this a player that they still want to move forward with. However, Seamus, you come to training camp and those shiny new pieces, like you just said, make a spark and they make a case. He could be on the move, but I look at this. It's like this summer league. He did not prove again Jack Diddley squat. Like he did not prove anything. I mean, unless you're Joe Mazzulla when he's like, oh yeah, he got thrown out of a game because he was aggressive. I mean, for Joe Mazzulla, I think he's going, "That boy Walsh. Yep, you're getting time on my roster." No, but other than Joe Mazzulla, I feel like he didn't make a case for anyone though. What are your thoughts though? Do you
No, but
agree?
even that moment, I think I mean, we had a big conversation when that moment occurred, and we had the conversation of just we would have loved to see Jordan Walsh play more in that game because at that
He's
point in
having a
time, there
good
were only
game.
3 more games for him to show out in summer league, and the first game he gets thrown out after playing only 10 minutes. The second game he played last game against the Lakers, played in that game, had himself a solid night. But then tonight is shut down. So after Jordan Walsh came, let's see, after he came off the trying to get the games right here. So we played the Celtics played the Grizzlies, the Knicks, the Heat, and the Lakers. Okay, so coming off the first two games, the Grizzlies and the Knicks games, because he played those two games. Coming off those two games, we were saying, well, Jordan Walsh feels like he needs to do a little bit more to alleviate himself from the pack at Summer League. We said the same thing about Baylor Shireman last game as well during that huge conversation. But Jordan Walsh, the first two games, it's like some of the numbers were there, but wanted to see him be a little bit more aggressive. You wanted to see him stamp his foot, or rather make it. You wanted to see him make his stamp his impact onto the game. All right, a little bit more than he did in the rebounding category, in the facilitating category, just handling the ball in general. Right, just wasn't as aggressive as we thought with the ball, and wasn't as far from the pack as we thought as well, because we want to see out of players in summer league. We want to see them. We want to see players separate themselves from the rest of the roster and rosters out at summer league. That's what we've seen that in the past with players before, like a Peyton Pritchard and Celtics rookies like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Those are the more notable ones. Those are some of the guys who go out at summer league in their second years, right, or even their third years. If you're talking about Jordan Walsh, this would be his third summer league, right? Talking about some of these guys in their second or third years, they should, and with NBA experience, they should be alleviating themselves from all of these overseas and G League players, because those players, if you're playing in the NBA, should be under them from a talent perspective, or at least a know-how of the if you're playing a basketball game, just the know-how, the speed of the game, it should come a little bit easier and more fluid to a player who's played in the NBA, who's ready to play in the NBA, than a player playing overseas or playing in the G League. Jordan Walsh just didn't really. I mean, there were times. I mean, I would give it to him. There were times, certainly, and I think overall he was more on the positive end of the spectrum of, oh, he looked more like an NBA player than some of the other players on the Celtics roster. And what I love too is Amari Williams. They interviewed him at the end of the game, and they were talking about how, or he was rather talking about how the team, they looked up to Jordan Walsh and Baylor Shireman as the leaders of the team, and anytime they were confused and wanted to know what was going on, whether with a play or just anything within the game, they would turn to Jordan Walsh and Baylor Shireman. The team would. So I like that aspect, but overall, it didn't necessarily, the Jordan Walsh impact. It didn't feel like it was as profound as it should have been in his third summer league. And that's
man.
but this is a point of evaluation for Jordan Walsh, because his contract. Let's see, JD Davis. Okay, so JD Davison, his contract is January 10th. That's the guarantee date. Jordan Walsh, the guarantee date is opening night. So Jordan Walsh, the point of evaluation is right now at Summer League, or was rather at Summer League, or just in the past couple of days, in the past week here. That was a point of evaluation for Jordan Walsh. But now it's going to be training camp and the preseason. His spot on the roster, I'm telling you, Griffin, he's only guaranteed $200,000. Jordan Walsh's spot on the roster is not guaranteed whatsoever. Going into his third year, making the minimum, he's on an unguaranteed deal, didn't really prove himself at Summer League. This was supposed to be one of the moments where Jordan Walsh stands out from the crowd. Okay, he was just supposed to stand out, supposed to give the Celtics something to hold on to for the validity of his roster spot later on down the line. And I thought it was a C plus performance out of Jordan Walsh, right? It wasn't terrible, it wasn't an F, it wasn't, oh my goodness, it wasn't Yabu in 2019. Okay, Yabu in 2019 was another level of awful, but this year, Jordan Walsh wasn't another level of awful, but it wasn't top tier. It really wasn't. It really wasn't a top tier type of performance out of Jordan Walsh at the Summer League. And that's where I now look at the situation with Jordan Walsh and go, training camp and preseason could be a pretty big time period for him, considering during the Summer League, he didn't necessarily further his case. And that's the main question here is, did he further his case for a roster spot and more minutes next year? I would say not really.
No, because the only way he's going to prove that now is in preseason. If he sticks out in preseason, then you're like, all right.
And he very, very well could do that, because last preseason he looked amazing.
Yeah, he very much could. It's very much right now question marks until we see him in preseason though. That's really much all. As of right now, no. But preseason rolls around and he's playing his heart out, and he's a guy that you're like, all right, I wouldn't mind seeing him come off the bench. Then yes, but until then, it won't be till preseason when we could actually highlight a yes or a no. Right now, it's just question marks because he didn't prove anything, like you said. He really didn't.
And of course, the regular season is right around the corner as we close out this summer league circuit. But before we close out our final post game until October,
Damn.
what is your final evaluation on this year's Celtics summer league squad? What are some successes and failures of this year's Celtics summer league team, and what did you learn from this team along the way of the journey?
I have to say, this summer league, I learned that we had some guys who are NBA ready. All right, we have some guys who, this was kind of the most bright that we've had. Maybe who knows? Maybe there's some brightness along for the distance, but we're in for some very dark days this season, and it's just the hard cold truth. However, it was fun. It was fun. And I want to highlight again the guys that really stood out to me. Baylor Shireman didn't. Jordan Walsh didn't stick out to me. Ugo Gonzalez didn't stick out to me. Max Shulga didn't stick out to me. The ones who stood out to me were Amari Williams. There we go. Amari Williams. Sorry, we'll put up the pointer finger instead. Amari Williams. I did like Kendall Brown. I really did. Obviously, Charles Bassey was the main guy who really stood out to me. But you also had Isaiah Wong. He didn't do much, but this final game when he got more time and got the ball from the get-go, he really proved something. Obviously, him, Jalen Bridges, and again, really Charles Bassey really stood out to me. However, that's a question for another time too. But ultimately, the thing that really stood out to me is that we have and Kenny Lofton. He was all right. He didn't go up to my standards, but he was like mixed in that tier of like Kendall Brown's, Isaiah Wong. He was kind of mixed in there. Jalen Bridges, he was mixed in there. The only person Amari Williams, they were all kind of mixed in together. The only one that really and I think you go too far as to say that Amari Williams stood out as much as a Charles Bassey. Obviously the numbers weren't there like Charles Bassey, but he showed that he's a guy that I wouldn't mind seeing him have some time for the Boston Celtics. So ultimately, this is my final statement on the Summer League team, though. It was fun, and it's a team that I really hope, and I'm going to say this, I really hope we could have a lot of interviews with those guys because I really hope we see a lot of them in Maine. And hopefully some of them get those two-way contracts that we were talking about, Seamus. But what are your final thoughts on this Summer League team?
Well, I gotta say, summer league, what you can hope for is just good basketball out of any
That's what
team
we saw.
one watches. And that's what we pretty well saw out of the Celtics from a team perspective, right? We can pick apart all the individuals, but from a team perspective, this 2025 Celtics Summer League squad hung their hat on the defensive end of the floor. They were unselfish on the offensive end of the floor, and they finished the Summer League circuit 4-1, and their only loss was a 4-point loss to the Miami Heat, where the Celtics actually led down the stretch and won the possession battle in that game, and very much owned some opportunities to pull it out near the end when they unfortunately could not. But if you just look at the overall performance of the Celtics Summer League squad, it was an entertaining squad. It was a squad that played, in my mind, they played the brand of basketball you want to see from a winning basketball team in the NBA. Now, were there a lot of technical mistakes along the way? Yes, that is always going to happen in summer league, but you're always looking for the little winning intangibles, the little hustle stats, the little hustle moments within a team, and not only the little hustle moments, the little IQ moments where you're saying, "Oh, look at that little skip pass a guy made over here," or "Look at this read that this guy made," or "Ooh, look at the angle this man cut off on defense," or "Look at the mechanics this man has on his shot or on the defensive end of the floor." We're always looking at those little intangibles in summer league, and the Celtics for to to put out a positive word on the Celtics summer league squad, because let's face it, we've been ripping a lot of these guys apart for the past couple of post-game
Oh my
shows.
gosh.
But other than Charles Bassey, we came on here. Oh, Charles Bassey. Everybody else, we're like, I don't know. But regardless of the thrashing of some of these players and the picking apart, there were a lot of positive aspects to pull out of the Celtics Summer League team in general. And I think from the coaching staff as well, Matt Reynolds did a tremendous job at
He
Summer
did.
League. And
Hold
I
on.
think it
Can we
definitely
give a
shows the
round of applause
camaraderie
for that?
within the Celtics coaching staff and the connectivity there. And that's all important for winning. It really is.
Let's give a round of applause. Come on. To Matt Reynolds.
Wait, are you for Matt Reynolds?
Yes.
For Matt Reynolds, I'll give him a round of applause for this and this T-shirt. I'll give him a round of applause for the Summer League performance and the T-shirt. Or rather,
Let's do
I
it.
call this a T-shirt, a collared shirt, whatever you want to call it. But
That
shout
is
out Matt Reynolds from the first Summer League game. You get this shirt. And somebody mentioned in the comments back during that Grizzlies game, he's got the Missoula eyes. He's been hanging out with Missoula. They have the same amount of crazy.
he
You
does.
definitely see it in this photo right here.
That's the perfect picture to end the Summer League talks on. I have to
100%. I just gotta say the Celtics organization, the next post game we're on, it'll be October, all right? It'll be in the preseason. Might be against the Cavs, just saying. Could be October 12th. We found that out earlier. I don't know if that's been leaked everywhere, but it was leaked on the Celtics Nation Rise podcast. But the Celtics
Go check out an upcoming video coming in a couple of days. Just say, keep your eyes peeled. Turn on post notifications for Celtics Nation Rise and Celtics Talk Weekly because you guys want to stay tuned for that.
I'm just saying the preseason schedule, that might have been leaked exclusively on the Celtics Nation Rise podcast earlier. At least the 2 games. Just saying. Could be October 12th, the first preseason game. The whole point of this, though, is next season, a lot of people are doubting the Boston Celtics and their ability to win ball games. The over-under for the Celtics right now in Vegas is 43.5 wins. Next year's 43.5. That's down from, well, let's see. They won 61. The line was different for the Celtics last year in terms of win total, but the Celtics won 61 games in 24-25. Now their over-under for wins is at 43.5. 43.5. So people believe the Celtics are going to be around 500. That very well may be true next season, but what we saw during the Summer League, the coaching, the style of play the team rolled out, and the team they mentioned on the broadcast played a little bit faster. Maybe the Celtics want to play a little bit faster next year. I think this should give Celtics Nation a little bit of confidence that the team, regardless, the regular season team next season will be a little more formidable than
Who knows, Seamus?
people project. And this is not just a biased take. It's more of the fact we saw the Summer League squad go out there and play with all the little winning intangibles that it takes to pull. Like if you're thinking about a full season, right? There are always going to be stupid games a team loses along the way. But they're also games that you could steal. Like, we steal this game, steal that game. Seen the last 2 seasons, the Celtics just ran through the regular season schedule outside of that portion in December and January, and December of 2024 and January 2025. But otherwise, in years past, Celtics teams, they've stolen games, they've won extra games, they've won in the margins. That's what this team now, looking at the Summer League squad, if we're going to translate some of the themes of this Summer League squad into next season and what the coaching staff might bring to next year's team, the Celtics next season, there are going to be some stealing of possession moments. There are going to be some stealing of game moments. And that's ultimately going to lead the Celtics down a path of achieving a potentially better record than just 43 and 39, 43 and 39, right? That would be the 43 and 39. That's what they're projected.
This is my thing. Projections are bullshit. Only the game will speak for itself on the floor. That's all I gotta say.
And that is a great way to close us off, Griffin. That is an absolutely amazing statement. That is another shirt quote. You and Franco have a million amazing shirt quotes, I gotta say. You guys just pump them out. But that is going to do it for us here on CTW Postgame live tonight. The Boston Celtics defeating the Atlanta Hawks 101-80 to round out the 2025 Summer League. We will be back with you guys on Postgame in October. Now, of course,
Stay
we'll have a lot of
tuned.
content out between that time.
Stay
CTW Live, Celtics Nation Rise podcast. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe the CTW YouTube channel, the Celtics Talk Weekly YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Don't forget to go follow the Celtics Talk Weekly Instagram, the Celtics Talk Weekly Twitter, and of course the Celtics Nation Rise YouTube and Instagram as well. And I'll give myself a shout out, Celtics.everyday. Go hit up Celtics.everyday on Instagram too. However, that is going to do it for us here on Postgame until October. And as we always say, thank you all for watching. I am your host, Seamus Zarlingo. Alongside of me tonight, Griffin Aldridge. And of course, as we always say, go